So let's say that you have a person who passed away and they had a will, and you know that you have an interest in receiving a distribution in that estate. But let's say, the market's really good and there's other beneficiaries and they don't want to sell. What should happen then? Hi, I'm Deric Rangell, certified probate realtor for over 30 years. And in this segment, we're going to talk about how to make sure you get what you're supposed to in a probate matter, especially when there's a will. So when someone has a bequeath, that is basically the person making the will. That's their wish on their death to be executed. In other words, I'm dying, and upon my death, I want the house sold and I want my 3 kids to divide the proceeds equally. Very straightforward. That's a command. That's a directive. If there's an administrator, an executor who's being defiant to that, then that is where things can get dicey. But the simple matter of fact is it doesn't matter if they don't want to. If the will says you have to sell, then you can compel the courts to cause them to sell the property. And that's called a partition sale. So basically, when somebody can't hold your interest hostage, and that's effectively what sometimes happens, is people say, I don't want to sell it, we should keep it, blah, blah, blah. Well, if one of them needs the money and wants the money, it's theirs. And they have the right to get it, and they have the right to force the property to be sold, especially if the maker of that will ordered that so. And so we see this happen a lot where, people have really good real estate, but then there's someone who doesn't live in the area, and quite frankly, they shouldn't have to care because other people want to keep and retain it. They have what's coming to them and they're owed that. And so when you get into difficult situations, you do have a way out. And so you may need to hire another attorney. Typically, if you did, that might be a litigation attorney, but you want a trust and estate section litigator doing this because they know the trust and estate laws best. But know that you have rights. Now, the bad part about that is it becomes very expensive to enforce those rights. The other side of that is if someone's harming your financial interests, they can be forced to compensate you for the harm to you they've caused. In other words, if you were owed your money and you end up making less because all of a sudden their genius turns into the market trash and dumped on them, and now you have a loss, well, that creates other causes of action. But any of those things typically are going to be done on a retainer, and they're going to be done with what attorneys typically will refer to as a contingency case, which basically means the attorney is going to finance the lawsuit on behalf of you. And the long and short of it is if that's the only remedy, it's better than getting nothing. But understand the attorney is going to take a big chunk out of that, and the expense that can tax you, so to speak, it can be really, really big. I've seen them as high as 50% of a person's proceeds. So if you have a nice piece of property, let's say you have $300,000 coming to you, to get your $300,000, you may have to part with the $150,000 on the contingency agreement with that attorney. So if you do get into that, the important thing is that you get a good litigator. The next important thing is that you actually can shop how much they're going to take. In most cases, it's going to be about a third, but in some cases it'll be more, especially if there's other contests or other issues inside that complaint that the attorney is going to want to raise, which you may not be aware of, but this is why he's an expert at what he does. And it may take a greater defense for your interest to be protected. But in any case, the important thing is that nobody can hold you hostage because they don't want to sell, especially when the will requires them to do so. So you do have an outlet. That outlet would be through a partition action, and you would probably want to get a separate attorney representing you in that action against the estate. Hope that helps to clarify how to get through a problem. Probate's messy a lot of times, but there are avenues that could just make the pain a little bit lessened, and this is one that you might want to consider if you are in this situation. Thanks for watching.